Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 2022 National Rail Heritage Awards. Can I also welcome those people who are watching us through our live broadcast on the internet, and just to let everybody know, we are recording this as well as broadcasting it. Last year I spent a lot of time talking about Theo Steele, my predecessor as chairman, so this year I can move very swiftly into the proceedings. So Stephen, can I ask you to take us through the awards, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your Royal Highness, a wonderful thing to be here again. Welcome to the 2022 National Railway Heritage Awards. Whilst this year was partially affected by the ongoing effects of COVID-19, our competition happily goes from strength to strength with a fascinating range of entries, as I think you'll see over the course of the morning. Not all of them, sadly, can be winners, but the quality of workmanship that's evinced by all the entrants was really excellent. This applies to the winners and the shortlisted, to all the entrants. In reviewing the year, there's often been a common theme. Often projects seem to deal only with part of a building or a site or a station, and the end result is wonderful, but if only there was greater coordination to ensure the rest of the site was also treated, so much the better. And in some cases, we'll see sites where the whole site has thus been addressed. As always, we need to thank our sponsors. Quite literally, without their backing, today's event would not be possible, and we're grateful to them, old and new, for their ongoing support in these difficult times. Now, let's turn to the awards themselves, and we begin with the BAM Nuttall Partnership Award. This is given for the greatest heritage improvement works made to any historic railway structure as part of a jointly funded project. There are 3 shortlisted candidates for the award this year, the first of which is for the restoration of the signal box at Loudham in Nottinghamshire, entered by Loudham Railway Heritage. The box, which is situated on the line from Nottingham to Newark, was opened by the Midland Railway in 1896. It remained largely unchanged until 1938, when the construction of a bypass meant modification and further alterations, which continued through the remainder of its operational life. It was rendered redundant in 2016 as a result of the line's re-signalling, and the entrants obtained agreement from Network Rail to preserve the box and convert it into a museum detailing the history of signalling in the 1950s. Following the preparation of a new foundation, as the box needed to be relocated, work on the resiting and restoration commenced in October 2021. Externally, the work included repair or replacement of all damaged or rotting timber work and the construction of a new staircase to fit the space available. And the latter was all carefully researched and well executed. Internally, the aim was to recreate the arrangements as near as possible as they existed in the 1950s. Using photographic evidence, prototypical equipment has been sourced and carefully incorporated. Overall, a very commendable scheme to restore the signal box and provide a visitor attraction at this fine Victorian station. The work shows that thorough and extensive research and attention to detail have been put into the project, and all involved can be very proud of what has been achieved. The second shortlisted candidate was made by Slice Pizzerias Limited and covers work undertaken on part of the Grade 2 listed station at Manchester Oxford Road. Although opened in 1849, the present Grade 2 listed station dates to 1960 and was designed by William Robert Headley and Max Glendenning. The new building, described by Nicholas Pevsner as one of the most interesting and innovative of its period, involved considerable use of timber due to the relatively weak viaduct on which the station stands. The retail unit that forms the entry had originally been used as a newsagent's, but it had been out of use for many years. The entrants commenced a 3-month project to convert the space into a pizzeria in June 2021. The original floor had to be replaced, but the shutters were carefully sanded, prepared and repainted. The external woodwork, part of the listed structure, was also carefully treated and the original signage restored. Inside the unit, the space has been fully refurbished with new tiling and replacement electrical equipment required for today's operational needs. This is a relatively small-scale scheme, but one that has restored to use a space which had been out of use for some years. It has retained and restored the ambience of the original structure while making it fit for purpose for the modern age. And the final entry is entered by the Poacher Line Community Rail Group and covers restoration work undertaken on the station at Sleaford in Lincolnshire. The Grade 2 listed station at Sleaford was opened in 1857 by the Boston, Sleaford and Midland Counties Railway, a subsidiary of the Great Northern Railway. The station, as it exists today, was considerably enlarged in the early 1880s with the opening of the Great Northern and Great Eastern Joint Line. The station comprises main and island platforms. On the latter is a wooden and glazed building that historically comprised 2 waiting rooms with ancillary features. 1 waiting room remains in use, but the upper suffered from fire damage and has been out of use for 15 years. In January 2022, work began on a 5-month project to convert the disused waiting room and toilet into a community room and office. The external work included the repair and repainting of the external panelling, canopy and doors, as well as reglazing the building. Internally, panelling to match the original was sourced to replace what had been damaged by fire, while all the coving, architraves and skirtings were repaired, with any missing sections replaced to match the originals. The skylight was beyond repair, but was reconstructed following research to replicate the original. The community group is really to be congratulated on the excellent work at the station. The attention to detail exemplified in the reconstruction of the skylight, for example, shows what can be achieved through research and hard work. So which of this attractive trio is the winner of the BAM Nuttall Partnership Award 2022? I'm pleased to announce that the award of the BAM Nuttall Partnership Award for 2022 goes to the Poacher Line Community Rail Group for bringing back into use the derelict rooms at Sleaford Station, and I'd like to invite Joe Andrews and Peter Roberts to receive the award from Paul McCracken of BAM Nuttall. Right. And next, the GWR Craft Skills Award recognises the best use of traditional craft skills in restoring a heritage building or structure. And again, there are 3 shortlisted projects for this award. The first of the trio was entered by Network Rail for work done on the impressive War Memorial situated at the former Dover Marine Station. The Grade 2 listed memorial was unveiled after World War I and comprises 2 elements. These are the memorial wall, on which the names of the fallen are inscribed, and a large bronze sculpture that depicts each branch of the armed forces. Although no longer located in a building owned by Network Rail, the entrants believed it was still important to repair a structure that honoured railwaymen of earlier generations. In the century since the memorial's unveiling, structural defects caused large fractures and displacement within the wall, and the names faded over time, and the statue had become discoloured and suffered loss of detail. With the wall, the work included strengthening its foundations, repair or replacement of damaged stonework with suitable Portland stone, the redressing of brickwork and recutting of names. Those sections of stone that had to be replaced had been retained to cut into smaller memorial items to offer to interested parties or relatives of those commemorated. A really thoughtful and commendable approach. Turning to the sculpture, this was carefully cleaned to remove several layers of earlier wax covering and years of bird droppings before being re-waxed, and the memorial lettering was re-gilded. The works have been beautifully planned and executed by Network Rail and their contracting team with the support of the Port of Dover. Network Rail to be congratulated on their commitment to the memorial's restoration, to remind us all of the sacrifice made for our country by the young men of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway and their successors of the Southern Railway. The second shortlisted entry was made by Colt Construction Limited for restoration of the signal box at Garsdale. Originally known as Hawes Junction, the Grade 2 listed box at Garsdale was built for the Midland Railway in 1910. The box is notable for its involvement in the Hawes Junction crash of that year, an accident that was pivotal in the decision to introduce track circuitry. The timber structure had suffered extensively as a result of weather, this exposed location, and being on top of an embankment, it had also suffered from subsidence. Following work to stabilise the building, a 4-month project to restore it was completed in October 2021. Externally, the work included replacement on a like-for-like basis of much of the timber and thorough renovation of the roof with new finials added. The staircase has been completely renewed and the later toilet block remodelled. Internally, the work included improvements to the lighting, heating and air conditioning, while drafts from the locking room below have been reduced. Working in the locking room was complex as a result of the additional steelwork required to stabilise the structure. The work at Garsdale has been undertaken very well, as has come to be expected from this contractor, and the box's condition is now in keeping with the rest of Garsdale Station. Since the threat of the closure of the settled Carlisle line has been listed, many structures on that line have been restored to a high standard, and this project achieves the same quality. The third shortlisted candidate was entered by Network Rail and comprises the restored roof at Stirling Station. Designed for the Caledonian Railway by James Miller, the Grade A listed station at Stirling was completed in 1913. The work that forms the entry covers the roof over the station buildings on Platform 2. Over the years, the condition of the roof had deteriorated. Following the erection of scaffolding, work commenced on a £3 million project in March 2021 to fully restore the roof and the associated structures. Existing Ballachulish slates were salvaged and reused on all the outer-facing slopes. Second-hand Ballachulish slates were obtained to make up any shortfall, and these were carefully graded and laid. The inner-facing slopes were slated with Welsh slate, as recommended by Historic Environment Scotland, and the stonework was carefully repaired with a missing stone finial replaced. Care was taken to replace cast iron rainwater goods with material sourced to the original pattern when the originals were too damaged to be repaired. All the lead work was renewed and installed to an exemplary standard in accordance with the Lead Contractors Association guidelines. Good workmanship is evident throughout the works here. The stonework and repairs to a very high standard, exemplary attention to detail, and all are to be congratulated on this beautifully executed project. All in all, 3 varied projects, but which of the trio has won the GWR Craft Skills Award 2022? The winner is Network Rail for the careful work undertaken in the reconstruction of that roof at Stirling Station. So I'd like to invite Valerie McMillan and Eddie McHugh from Network Rail to receive the GWR Craft Skills Award from Judy Lady McAlpine. We now move on to the Arch Company Urban Heritage Award. This award recognises the success of a train operator, station owner or other partnership in ensuring consistently high-quality upkeep and enhancement of the environment of a significant urban station, so as to perpetuate the historic ambience consistent with modern passenger requirements. Again, we have 3 shortlisted entries. The first was entered by Scotrail for the restoration of the North Corner building at the Grade A listed Aberdeen station. Although the original station at Aberdeen opened in 1867, construction of the current station began in 1913 and was completed after the First World War. The North Pavilion, the centrepiece of this entry, was added around 1920. Following the decline in the railway industry during the 1960s, parts of the station became redundant. Among the elements no longer required was the North Pavilion, and its sole use for many years was as a badminton hall, and its condition deteriorated. Although work on a restoration project started in March 2020, it was soon recognised that the project needed to be more extensive than was originally anticipated. As a result, the work wasn't finished until March 2022, 2 years later. And externally, this included the careful removal of the steel windows, their refurbishment for reinsertion, and the installation of replacement fan lights in the portico. Major works were completed to the roof and the stonework. Internally, the original lath and plaster was retained where possible and replaced where necessary. The high-vaulted ceiling and cornice have been reinstated to the original design. Other historic features, such as wall brackets, were carefully refurbished and retained. The care and attention to detail involved in this project is evident, and the workmanship is good. Scotrail is to be commended for working on a building that was in a parlous condition and undertaking its restoration, despite the fact that it still lacks a commercial tenant. Let's hope there is one very soon. The second shortlisted entry in this category came from Transport for London for restoration of the light boxes giving train indications above the District Line platforms at Earls Court Station. The Grade 2 listed Earls Court Station opened in 1878. Following the electrification of the District Railway in 1904, illuminated platform indicators were installed over the next decade, and they're familiar to millions of Londoners. However, recent modernisation to the signalling on the underground subsurface line meant light boxes would no longer operate as they were connected to the old electrical signalling system. However, their iconic character was recognised and a commendable decision made to connect them to the new signalling so they could continue to operate. Inevitably, with a project like this, much of the work is behind the scenes and invisible. For example, in order to integrate light boxes into a new signalling system, a new relay box had to be installed within the light boxes to switch a 230 AC volt feed for the destination lamps. For all the light boxes, new enamel signs were obtained in the correct blue and in the correct iconic font. And these included options that were not available originally, destinations, that is. Additional signs have been made for other possible destinations as and when the need arises. And the original signs have been retained for the London Transport Museum collection. Transport for London has gone the extra mile with this project, ensuring that this much-loved feature is kept in situ and working and updated to cater for the modern age and anticipate changing needs. The public reaction when the boards were taken out of service showed how much passengers appreciated them, and following restoration, the positive reaction to the signs being restored has shown how worthwhile the project really was. The final entry for this award has been made by Network Rail Wales and Western and Spence Refit Limited for restoration of the Macmillan House Block B facade at London Paddington. The departures side offices at Paddington are formed of a number of different blocks which have been constructed over the life of the Grade 1 listed station, from the original section completed by Brunel in 1854 and the creation of a royal waiting room for Queen Victoria up to the great reworking of it for Crossrail in 2021. The building suffered bomb damage during the Second World War and received little investment over the succeeding 70 years. The construction of the new Elizabeth line further restricted access to the facade over the last several years, and this meant that the structure was in poor condition and required substantial work to restore it once access became possible. Work began in January 2022 on a 5-month project to restore the facade. The restoration and repair throughout has been faithful to the original design, and where replacement elements were required, they were matched accurately to the original details. Significant elements include the restoration of the overdoor glazing to the royal entrance, and to Bay 8, where a complete new timber window replaced plywood boarding. And for Bay 8, this also included rebuilding of missing brickwork below the window with second-hand matching London stocks and recasting missing mouldings to produce a finished arch, a complete arch that can no longer be differentiated from the adjacent originals. Network Rail and Spence Refit Limited are to be congratulated on taking advantage of a short window opportunity to restore this elevation prior to the opening of the Elizabeth Line station. And it's really gratifying to see that all the hard work in achieving this outcome contributes so much to the quality of this important interchange area, and the clock arch at Paddington has regained its position as a main entrance to this famous station. 3 excellent entries, but which of them was the most successful in the eyes of our adjudicators? I'm pleased to announce that the Arch Company Urban Heritage Award for 2022 goes to Scotrail for the excellent work on the North Pavilion at Aberdeen Station, and I'd now like to invite Kirsty Devlin from Scotrail up to receive the award from Rob McAuliffe from the Arch Company. Well done. Next we come to the Structures Restoration Award, sponsored by Translink. This is the first year that Translink have sponsored an award, and we thank them for their support. This award is given for the successful restoration, modification or adaptation for new use of any historic railway or tramway civil engineering structure in any ownership. There are 3 shortlisted entries for the award. The first of the shortlisted entries was made by Network Rail and Tazica for the refurbishment of the new Clyde Bridge on the approaches to Central Station in Glasgow. The Grade A listed bridge was constructed for the Caledonian Railway between 1899 and 1905 across the River Clyde at Broomielaw. The 200-metre-long structure carried 15 operational lines into Glasgow Central Station. The steel bridge comprises 5 straight spans on channelled granite piers, each with 5 steel caisson foundations. 4 transverse granite arches stand between the piers to support the tracks. After many years of heavy use, there was a need for work to survey, strengthen and protect the bridge to ensure its preservation and maintain its structural integrity, and a 3-year project commenced in February 2019. Following detailed research and preparation, the work included blast cleaning of all the steelwork and its repair where necessary. Where original rivets were removed, they were replaced with modern bolts designed to replicate the originals. Masonry repairs were undertaken to the redundant piers of the first bridge as well. Other work included improved access for maintenance and the introduction of anti-trespass measures. Repairs were made to the cast and wrought iron, and while the original cast iron rainwater goods were replaced by a new steel system, the design of it is sympathetic to the historic structure. This was an exceptionally challenging project as the bridge spans 2 busy roads and a navigable river, while supporting the approaches to Scotland's busiest railway station. Its success has ensured the long-term future of this important bridge while enhancing the conservation area within which it is located. The second of the shortlisted entries was made by Network Rail and Colt Construction for a refurbishment of the footbridge at Haltwhistle. The Newcastle and Carlisle Railway station at Haltwhistle first opened in 1838 and became a junction in 1852 with the opening of the branch to Alston. The Grade 2 listed cast iron footbridge dates to about 1860, and the signal box, which closed in 1993, dates to 1901. Following a review in 2018 of assessments that had been made to the bridge in 2012 and 2016, a 4-month project commenced in February of this year to refurbish the structure. The ironwork was completely blast cleaned and redundant fittings removed. The work has been done thoroughly, and the paint scheme is a good match for the North Eastern Railway colours of copper beech and straw cream. New mesh panels have been fitted to comply with safety requirements, and these are mounted on very neat custom-made brackets, which have been carefully integrated into the original parapet frames. The original handrails have been refurbished and new lower-level rails added to meet modern access requirements. A lot of work's been carried out to replace all the timber steps and decking with new wood. These are enhanced by the addition of non-slip surfaces and tactile surfaces at ground level, and the original slope of the decking has been followed and modern drainage fittings installed. The bridge is a central and prominent feature of this busy wayside station, and it's been restored to its former glory and brought up to date for use in the 21st century. It now looks extremely smart and complements the recently restored waiting rooms. The final shortlisted entry was made by Greenways and Cycle Routes Limited for conversion work on Tiddenham Tunnel near Chepstow as part of the Wye Valley Greenway. Once part of the Great Western Railway branch from Chepstow to Monmouth, the 1,120-yard-long tunnel was completed in 1876. Passenger services over the line ceased in November 1959. Although the line closed completely north of Tintern in 1964, the southern section remained open until 1992, initially to serve a quarry at Tintern and latterly to assist in the construction of the second road crossing of the River Severn. Although planning for a possible cycleway over the 5-mile stretch from Tintern to Chepstow began more than a decade ago, when Sustrans and Railway Paths Limited acquired the freehold of the track bed, delays meant that funding was not available, and it was only in 2019 that the entrance made a new funding application. It was granted the following year, and the tracks were lifted in the summer of 2020. In approaching the work, the entrants were faced by a number of challenges. This included the need for lighting for pedestrians and cyclists, while ensuring that the illumination was set at a low level so the resident bat population would not be adversely affected. And other work included installing a shell under the vent shaft to deflect any debris away from the route, and provision of a new surface on the track bed that would provide access suitable for disabled people. In some respects, converting a redundant tunnel to a new use can be straightforward, but Tiddenham Tunnel was different, and the concept and the outcome show that. It's a down-to-earth scheme, but it has delivered what was required, permitting access to an unusual subterranean place, and there's a great deal to commend this scheme. The hard work and perseverance of all those involved should be congratulated. So 3 very different schemes here for our adjudicators to decide upon. But the winner of the Translink Structures Award 2022 is Greenways and Cycle Routes Limited for the bat-friendly conversion of the Tiddenham Tunnel. So would John Grimshaw and Caroline Levitt from Greenways and Cycle Routes Limited please join us on the stage to receive the award from Paul Denver of Translink. Thank you. The London Underground Operational Enhancement Award is given for the scheme that demonstrates the greatest improvement in user accessibility while still sustaining a location's historic features. There are 3 shortlisted entries again. The first of these covers work undertaken at Sudbury Hill Station in London in order to introduce step-free access and was entered by Transport for London. The District Railway opened the Grade 2 listed station at Sudbury Hill in 1903. But the building as it exists today is from 1932 to 1933, designed by Charles Holden. It's an early example of what became known as Holden's Sudbury box style, a brick box with a concrete lid, but a very finely designed one. As part of its step-free access programme, Transport for London started planning for the introduction of lifts in 2019, and work on the project was completed in December 2021. Design of the lift towers has been carried out with reference to the detailing of the original building. The link to the footbridge on the westbound platform replicates the concrete of the original, complete with Crittall metal frame windows, which of course were a significant element of Holden's design. The introduction of the new lift shaft required alteration to the existing booking hall on the south side. All the brickwork, internal and external, has been completed using the same imperial-sized Buckinghamshire bricks as the original work and laid in the same Flemish bond. The narrowness of the platform required the introduction of a barrier at the edge. The scheme has achieved its aim of step-free access, and it's a pleasure to see this imaginative design with its respect for Holden's detailing matched by the quality of the workmanship. The second shortlisted entry for the award was made by the Dean Forest Railway and covers the extensive re-signalling project undertaken at Park End Station in Gloucestershire. Park End is the current northern terminus of the preserved railway. Historic passenger services here ceased in 1929, and much of the station and its facilities were subsequently demolished. The original signal box, which was located to the north of the level crossing, was demolished in 1969, but a replacement, an ex-Great Western Railway box relocated from Maesmoor, was rebuilt as part of the railway's recreation of a station here. This was completed about 20 years ago, but it wasn't used for signalling purposes until the completion of the present project. Prior to the scheme, the station was controlled by a ground frame, and although the box had been installed, it wasn't until 2014 that the project made significant progress. The box was finally commissioned in March of this year. The original frame from Maesmoor has been fully refurbished, with the first 29 levers now in use. Restoration of the box included replacement of degraded timberwork and a refurbishment of the roof and windows. The signals, which have been sourced from various locations, are a mix of Great Western and Midland types, which would have been typical of a jointly operated line, which the railway through Parkend was. The bracket signal has been constructed using an original timber post, with more timber sourced new. The fittings have either been refurbished or recast. The signals carrying the two home signals, as well as two calling on arms, and they are beautifully constructed and painted. Overall, the project has achieved what it set out to do, namely it enables the railway to accept and dispatch trains in a correct and safe manner, completely under the control of the signalman. The project has been completed to a high degree of workmanship and is a great credit to the volunteers of the Dean Forest Railway. The final shortlisted entry for the award was entered by Network Rail and comprises work undertaken at Wellingborough Station in order to accommodate the electrification of the Midland Main Line to Corby. The Grade 2 listed station at Wellingborough on the Midland Railway's line from Hitchin to Leicester was designed by Charles Henry Driver and opened in 1857. The quadrupling of the lines in 1882 resulted in the creation of the current island platform. In October 2019, work commenced on the project. This included, as part of the works associated with the Midland Main Line, an upgrade programme in order to facilitate the introduction of the 25,000-volt overhead line equipment on the route to Corby. Although the introduction of the overhead cables required the platform canopies to be cut back, the opportunity was taken to do this in a sympathetic way and to refurbish and restore the remaining structure, replacing missing and damaged ironwork to the original design and with traditional methods and materials. Missing finials and bosses have been reinstated to the canopy gables. Columns have been replaced where they were corroded, and the rainwater has been rerouted from the gutters into new downpipes. There were accessibility issues related to platform extensions, and these have been the catalyst of work to the separately listed goods shed. Clearance from the platform elevation of the shed to the platform edge, as you see, is very tight, and the solution is to use the shed as a walkway, access to original openings at either end. The restoration has included replacement roofing in appropriate slates, with reinstatement of the roof light, and repairs to the brickwork. A thoroughly successful project that respects and enhances a quirky building, transforming it into something different and memorable. The details of the scheme have been well thought through, securing heritage gains that are a delight to experience, and the station is now a worthy gateway to the town. 3 very different projects there, but the London Underground Operational Enhancement Award for 2022 is made to Transport for London for the meticulous work undertaken in installing passenger lifts at Sudbury Hill. And so would Michelle O'Brien and Ian Gilbert from Transport for London please come up to join Edmund Bird, also representing Transport for London, to receive the award. Thank you. The Railway Heritage Trust Conservation Award is for the best restored, listed or historic structure to which the Trust has contributed funding. We begin with the first of three very different entries. The first entry covers the restoration of the station house at Leeming Bar, which was entered by the Wensleydale Railway Association Trust. Designed by G.T. Andrews, the Grade 2 listed station at Leeming Bar was opened by the York, Newcastle and Berwick Railway as the terminus of a branch line from Northallerton. Subsequently, it became a through station with the opening of the route westwards to Hawes and Garsdale. Passenger services were withdrawn from the station in 1954, but freight traffic continues to operate over the route, and heritage passenger services were introduced in 2003. Over the years, however, the condition of the station deteriorated and it was placed on the local authorities' buildings at risk register. The external work was extensive to restore the original layout and fabric, and it included careful work to the entrance portico, which had been damaged by traffic on the adjacent Great North Road, and the restoration of the porch to its original proportions, and the replacement of a British Railways era door. Work was also undertaken on the roof and chimneys. The original toilet block was demolished and a new facility built. And this has been constructed to match the main building using appropriate bricks and mortar. The care taken to replicate the cast lighting brackets shows an exemplary attention to detail. Internally, the work is again to a similarly high standard. The ground floor has been restored to reflect the condition and use of the station as it would have existed in the 1920s, while the upper level is used as office accommodation for the Wensleydale Railway Trust. Again, where original material had been lost, as in the ticket office screen and windows, it has been faithfully recreated following careful research. Overall, this is a very commendable scheme. It has transformed the appearance and condition of this attractive mid-Victorian station, meeting the listed building requirements. The works have been undertaken to a uniformly high standard, and it now makes the station building an attractive jewel in the village of Leeming Bar. The second shortlisted candidate was entered by Oxford Preservation Trust for the restoration of the Rewley Road swing bridge in Oxford. The bridge dates originally to 1851 and was a product of the railway competition, of the railway mania era, and of the Great Gauge controversy. It was designed by Robert Stevenson to provide access for the standard gauge London and Birmingham Railway to reach Oxford, and the bridge enabled the railway to cross the navigable Sheepwash Channel between the River Thames and the Oxford Canal. Modified and strengthened in 1890 and again in 1906, the bridge carried passenger services until 1951, but it remained in use for freight traffic until 1984. However, following closure, the condition of this unlisted but scheduled bridge deteriorated, and until work began on the project in 2019, it was considered to be at serious risk. Work was scheduled to start on the bridge's restoration in 2019, but was delayed and only completed in August 2021. The track supporting structures were originally longitudinal timbers, but latterly a cross-sleeper support system had been used. The timbers had rotted and aggravated the corrosion, and it was decided to install the track in the original style using heavy longitudinal timber bulks. The abutments were also restored. A key element targeting the restoration was the rotational mechanism dating from the 1850s, which carried the deck on a circular carriage, much like a giant roller bearing, operated by a gearing mechanism via manual capstan gearing at deck level. This has been carefully restored and returned to an operable condition. The finished project reflects the passion of the Trust and its many partners. They had the vision to see the part that this structure could play in a wider industrial heritage and cultural context, and the benefit of drawing attention to this unique piece of railway engineering. The last candidate for the award is an entry made by York Tap Limited and Pivovar Limited for the restoration of the facade of the York Tap at York Station. The tea room was constructed as a late addition to the station between 1900 and 1905. In 1906, the space was converted to a staff canteen, and in 1943, the original interior features were removed. Deterioration of the building continued from 1984, when it was leased to the York Model Railway Museum. The interior of the building, however, was fully restored some years ago, but this work didn't address the York Tap's exterior, and the facade continued to deteriorate. So, work began in January 2022 on a 4-month project to restore the York Tap's facade. From measurements taken, it became apparent that the original quality of workmanship had not been of a high standard, and there were variations in the actual structure. So the first challenge was actually guaranteeing the integrity of the structure. The original softwood was replaced using a longer-lasting hardwood, and the softwood covings and cornice also required careful replacement. The Art Nouveau leaded paned windows are an important feature of the building and are specifically mentioned in its listing, and so the window frames were a crucial element. The frames and transoms had deteriorated. They all had different measurements, and so special care was taken to recreate these important features with new hardwood replacements exactly. In total, everything's been done to match the building's history and recreate its handsome design. Great care has been taken in the choice of fixtures, fittings, and materials, and the attention to detail here is quite remarkable. So, 3 very different examples of conservation project again, but I'm pleased to announce that the Railway Heritage Trust Conservation Award for 2022 goes to the Oxford Preservation Trust for the fascinating project to restore the Rewley Road Swing Bridge. And so I'd now like to invite Debbie Dance from the Oxford Preservation Trust and Ross Turner from the Morton Partnership up the stage to receive the award from Tim Headley-Jones of the Railway Heritage Trust, please. And now we come to the Volunteers Award, sponsored by the Hendy and Pendle Trust. This award reflects the fact that many of the projects we see, particularly on the heritage railways, rely on volunteers to raise the funding and often to undertake the actual physical work. And it's for this reason that the award is the only one that comes with a financial contribution to support the winning entry. At this point, we would like to congratulate Peter, Lord Hendy, on his elevation to the House of Lords. He will be formally introduced to the House next week. There are 4 shortlisted entries in this special recognition of volunteer contributions. And we start with the rebuilt signal box from Waterhouses on the Amerton Railway, entered by the Staffordshire Narrow Gauge Railway Limited. The North Staffordshire Railway signal box at Waterhouses dated to 1905. It was extended a decade later for use with the narrow gauge Leek and Manifold line, but closed in 1943. After closure, the box was moved to a farm at Beeston Moor, where it was used inter alia as a hen house. In 1985, a further move saw the structure relocated to the old vicarage at Wheaton, from where it was finally rescued in 2001. Restoration of the building has been a long project, with it finally being recommissioned in May 2022. Extensive work included replacement of rotten timbers, re-roofing of the main and porch roofs in Welsh slate, and the fitting of cast iron rainwater goods. The interior has been fitted out in traditional style with a lever frame, interlocking and point rodding incorporated. In every respect, this is an extremely praiseworthy entry in which the highest ideals of conservation and restoration are exemplified. Superlative craftsmanship is everywhere evident, externally and within, with fastidious attention to detail, complemented by a beautifully presented lever frame with its polished brass accoutrements. The second of the shortlisted entries in this category is another signal box, this time from Bere Alston in Devon, and was entered by the Devon and Cornwall Rail Partnership. The London and South Western Railway box dates to the opening of the line from Plymouth to Lidford in 1890. It was extended in 1927 to incorporate the Callington branch. However, rationalisation of the railways after 1968 resulted in the box's closure in September 1970. After closure, the lever frame was removed and the structure was converted into a mess room for the local Permanent Way gang. When this use ceased in the early 1990s, the unlisted building became disused, and over the past 3 decades, its condition deteriorated. Work to restore it began in 2022, and the first phase involved removal of the 60,000 bees who had taken up residence and to repair the damage that these had wrought. The external work included the replacement of all rotten timber. The most significant element was like-for-like replacement of windows. The rail supporting the box floor was corroded, and this was also replaced. The disused signal box had been an embarrassment, but has now been put right. This simple but careful restoration of a small building enhanced with an accurate replica signboard has made a dramatic enhancement of the overall station ambience, and all those involved are to be congratulated. The third entry was made by Thomas and Anne-Marie Pymont for their restoration of Hassendine Station. The station was opened with the North British Railways Waverley Line extension from Hoyt to Carlisle in 1862. The station was closed at the same time as services over the Waverley route were withdrawn in 1969, and the site deteriorated until 1989 when the entrants purchased the property. Over the past 30 years, Thomas and Anne-Marie have undertaken a great deal of work to restore the station from the ruinous condition in which they acquired it. The work involved the careful conversion of the station building into a house, along with a sympathetically constructed extension. The downside waiting room has been converted into an office, while the timber footbridge, believed to be the only one extant in Scotland, if not the United Kingdom, has also been fully restored. This sensitive restoration and adaptation of Hassendine Station has revitalised this small but beautiful part of the Scottish borders and ensures that the unique character of the Waverley route lives on there. The final shortlisted entry for this award is the Talyllyn Railway Company for the recreation of the watering point at Tŷ. The watering point dates originally to the opening of the line to Abergynolwyn and Nant Gwernol in 1865. The line's original engine shed was at Tŷ, and the water supply was provided via launder supported on several slate columns. This arrangement continued after 1867, when the shed was replaced by one at Tywyn in that year. Following the line's closure and subsequent preservation, it was initially considered that services would never operate beyond Abergynolwyn, and the watering point fell out of use in the early 1950s, and the slate from the columns was taken and used for other purposes. So when the current project began in 2019, there was virtually no trace of the original structure left. Reconstruction was complex in that the alignment of the railway had changed. Local slate craftsmen were engaged to build replacement columns and pillars, capturing so far as possible the differences between original and later built columns. And the launder sections were fabricated from Welsh-sourced larch by volunteers at Pendray Works, incorporating a flap valve to control the water supply. Among schemes which seek to reinstate lost historic structures, this is a truly outstanding example. A great deal of research, forethought and care has gone into this venture, which has been executed to a very high standard, skillfully combining the use of traditional materials with the constraints of modern safety regulations. 4 very different and very impressive schemes. But which of this quartet has caught the eye of our awards panel? The winner of the Hendy and Pendle Trust Volunteers Award for 2022 is made jointly to, firstly, the Staffordshire Narrow Gauge Railway Limited for the reconstructed signal box at Amerton. So would Robin Mathams and Roger Strike from the railway please join us on stage to receive the award from Judy, Lady McAlpine, who's representing Lord Hendy. Thank you. The second award of the Hendy and Pendle Trust Volunteers Award goes to the Talyllyn Railway Company for their excellent recreation of the watering point at Tŷ, and so would Mike Christensen and Ian Drummond from the Talyllyn please come to the stage to collect their award from Lady McAlpine. We move on now to the Network Rail Community Award. This award is designed to recognise the restoration, refurbishment or other improvement of a station or building, either by a community group or for a community use that connect communities and promote social inclusion. There are 3 shortlisted entries. The first of these was made by Scottish Canals for the conversion of the Bowline Bridge, Bowling Harbour near Glasgow, to form part of a new linear park. The Grade B listed structure was completed in 1896 for the Lanarkshire and Dumbartonshire Railway. The viaduct included a double-track swing section that allowed boats to continue to use the Forth and Clyde Canal. The bridge was designed by the engineers Crouch and Hogg and built by Robert McAlpine, with machinery supplied by the Glenfield Company. The railway over the bridge closed in 1964, and the condition of the structure deteriorated. In December 2016, preliminary works commenced on the project to restore the viaduct and see it integrated into a linear route which will eventually provide a cycleway and footpath from Glasgow to Balloch. The work, which was phased into a number of stages, was completed in the summer of 2022. The first phase covered repairs to the viaduct. Work included the waterproofing of the deck, repairs to the brick and stonework, and conversion of the arches into retail outlets. The second phase saw refurbishment of the West End viaduct arches with further shop spaces. And during this phase of work, the infrastructure to operate the canal swing bridge was discovered and conserved. The final phase involved repairs to the steel bridges over Dumbarton Road and North Clyde Railway Line, repairing the decommissioned swing bridge, landscaping, new lighting, and the diversion of 1.5 miles of the Bowling to Edinburgh cycle route, which will pass over the refurbished viaduct and bridges. With the project complete, this is an impressive addition to the National Cycle Path, and the canal at Bowling attracts many visitors, walkers and cyclists. Well done to all involved with bringing the railway history of Bowling to life with this excellent reconstruction carried out over several years. The second entry was made by Station South Community Interest Company for the restoration of Levenshume South Station in Manchester. Originally called Levenshume, the suffix south was added in 1952. The station was located on the Fallowfield Loop Line in Manchester and was opened by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway in 1892. Although the station lost its passenger services in 1958, it was not until 3 decades later that the line through the station was finally closed. After closure, the station was used for a variety of purposes, but by 2016, it had become empty and its condition was deteriorating. Before work started, extensive research was undertaken on the line and other stations along it. External work included the restoration of the cupola, repointing the brickwork, replacement doors and windows, rebuilding the frontage, and restoring the engraving. Internally, the Tudor-style ceiling was carefully preserved and restored, while the parquet flooring was salvaged, preserved, and reused in the main hall. The character of the former large waiting room has been restored, enhancing it for a new community use as a themed cycling cafe. The conversion and restoration of this building has been carried out to a high standard and has transformed its appearance outside and in, and it's now a valuable community asset. This is a great project and a facility that all involved in should be very proud of. The third entry for this award was made by Nairn Men's Shed for the conversion of accommodation at Nairn Station into social and activity rooms. The main station building at Nairn dates to a rebuilding by the Highland Railway in 1885. On the south platform, there are 2 timber-framed buildings that post-date this, and the initial men's shed project involved one of these timber-framed structures on the south platform. This new entry encompasses 2 elements of the station, the second smaller building on the south platform and the interior of part of the main block on the north platform. The former had deteriorated considerably over the years, while the latter became disused when the previous tenant ceased trading. Work on the 2 structures began in 2020, but completion was delayed as a result of COVID. With reference to the smaller building on the south platform, work included replacement on a like-for-like basis of rotten woodwork, and the cast iron rainwater goods were similarly replaced. The interior of the main building on the north platform was carefully treated, all the historic detailing preserved, and the room was then repainted and fitted out with new facilities to make the space suitable for a new community use. Such is the success of the Nairn Men's Shed that other groups are considering applying the concept. And for Nairn Station, it means that virtually all of the station's buildings are now, or shortly will be, in use, generating an income for ongoing maintenance. Three very interesting projects. But which of this trio has won the Network Rail Community Award? I'm pleased to announce that the winner for 2022 of the Network Rail Community Award is Scottish Canals for their transformation of the magnificent Bowline Bridge at Bowling Harbour. But unfortunately, no one from Scottish Canals can be with us today, but to receive the award on their behalf, I'd like to invite John Yellowlees to the stage to receive a plaque from Tom Higginson of Network Rail. Thank you. We now come to a new award for 2022 that is sponsored by National Highways, and again we thank them for their support. This award covers the restoration, refurbishment, or other means of bringing a building or structure no longer in railway ownership into a sustainable use. There are three shortlisted entries for this award, and the first is the old station Ullerston for work undertaken to the former ticket office at the former Eberston station. The North Eastern Railway opened its line from Pickering to Seymour in 1882. The station, which is located in the village of Ullerston, was originally known as Wilton and became Eberston in 1903. Passenger services over the line ceased in 1950, and the station house passed through a number of occupants before it was acquired by the current owners in 1996. The eastern section of the building had become derelict, and in February 2020, work commenced on its restoration as a new holiday let. Externally, materials like bricks and slates from the derelict public toilets were reused in the extension to carefully match the originals, and even in the unusual bond from the original building was replicated. Replica lighting and seating has been included after careful research. Internally, the ticket office retains many of its original features, including the clock case, the iron fireplace, the ticket screen, and panelling. These have been carefully cleaned and repainted or revarnished. New fittings appropriate to the room's use as part of a holiday let are in keeping with its ticket office's story and help tell the story of the station. So all in all, this is a superb piece of restoration and conversion, well-researched and lovingly executed, as well as being completely self-funded. The second entry was made by Josephine and Gavin Kelly and covers the restoration of the station at Cashel Nagor in County Donegal. The station was situated on the Londonderry and Loch Swilly's extension to Burton Port that opened in 1907. Passenger services ceased over the line in 1940, and it was closed completely 7 years later. Used as a private residence after closure, the station fell into disrepair before briefly achieving fame when it was restored for use in a film in the 1990s. But it was abandoned again and was purchased by the entrance in 2017 for conversion as a holiday let. The entrants have expertly restored the building to its original appearance with a new extension to the rear very much in keeping with the historic building. Great care has been taken to ensure that the front elevation is restored to its original state, and the work included the provision for the first time of water and electricity to the site. Internally, the rooms were few original features had survived the ravages of time, have been furnished and decorated in a traditional manner with modern heating and modern facilities. Various railway signs, photographs, and newspaper cuttings help remind visitors of the building's history. This is an unusual and highly successful restoration of a derelict station building in a remote part of Ireland. It has been a labour of love, but has saved another important historic station for Ireland and for future generations to enjoy. The final entry was made by Richard Brown and covers work undertaken on the Grade 2 star listed station at Wolferton in Norfolk. The Great Eastern Railway line from King's Lynn to Hunstanton opened in 1862. The same year saw Queen Victoria purchase the estate at Sandringham, and the station at Wolferton began to be used by the royal family. And this resulted in the rebuilding of the station to designs by Charles Robert Ashby in the 1890s in an arts and crafts style to provide a building suitable for royalty and for the royal family's guests. Passenger services over the branch line closed in 1969, and the station was sold off with many features like level crossing gates disappearing. The building was used for a period as a museum. It was acquired by the entrant in 2001, and work started on its restoration shortly thereafter. Over the years, there has been steady progress to restore the station to its earlier splendour. The external work was very extensive. It included the replacement of windows, restoration of the canopies, remedial work to brick and stone and to the timber work. New platform lights were installed to match lost originals. The signal box foundations were repaired. Windows were replaced to match the original. The restored level crossing gates, the ornate iron entrance gates, and the layout of the gravel drive all add to the site. The interior of the main building has been lovingly altered to make a home. Period details, such as wainscoting and panelling, have been retained. The upper level of the signal box has been converted into a bedroom, but its lever frame, after careful restoration, has been retained, with furniture imaginatively incorporated into it. The work in the royal rooms is excellent, with woodwork and ceilings completed to their original designs, and the original lavatories for the Prince and Princess of Wales restored. The work carried out on this unique building is really exceptional. The restoration of a very high standard, while many features, which were either sold or needed repair, have been reinstated. 3 fascinating conversions of disused stations. I think you'll agree. But only one can win. So I'd now like to invite Amy Brown and Ian Bursford to come up to the stage to receive the plaque from Elaine Rossiter of National Highways for the superb restoration of Wolferton Station. We now come to the Southeastern Commercial Restoration Award, and again there are 3 shortlisted entries. The first is to Tyne Valley Community Rail Partnership for the restoration of the waiting room buildings at Haltwhistle. We've encountered Haltwhistle earlier in this ceremony, but just to remind you, the station was originally opened by the Newcastle and Carlisle Railway in 1838, but its facilities were extended following the opening of the Alston branch. The wooden waiting room buildings that formed the entry were completed in 1907. Earlier schemes at the station have seen the restoration and reuse of other structures, but the unlisted waiting room buildings had deteriorated over the years, part in use as waiting rooms and the remainder just boarded up. Without remedial work and under roll, the buildings were in serious danger of being lost. Following detailed planning, work was completed in August 2021. The external work included repairs to the external fabric, replacement on a like-for-like basis where needed. Re-roofing was done using the original slates where possible, and to improve insulation, and the windows were also repaired or replaced as required. Photovoltaic cells were installed to help reduce the ongoing costs, and a new entrance, the waiting room platform 2, was constructed. Internally, the repairs were extensive. They included replacement joists, replacement flooring, the insertion of new partitions to facilitate the reuse of the buildings as waiting rooms with other uses in part of it. Original features were retained or replicated where necessary, and one facet of the scheme is the creation of 4 small studios for artists or start-up businesses. This is an excellent entry, with the buildings now providing useful facilities and looking attractive again. The work has enhanced the ambience of Haltwhistle Station and demonstrated a positive approach to revitalisation of buildings which had become eyesores. It's an exemplar for others. Our second shortlisted entry was made by Station South Community Interest Company for the work undertaken at Levenshulme South Station. We have already encountered this project today, but let's remind ourselves about it. The station was opened by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway in 1892, shortly before the company became the Great Central. It acquired the suffix South following nationalisation in order to distinguish it from the ex-London and North Western Railway station in the town. The station lost its passenger services in 1958, though the line through the station remained operational for a further 30 years. Since closure, the station has passed through a number of uses, but by the end of the last decade, its condition had deteriorated, and there was a serious danger that this fine Victorian building might be lost. The external work included remedial work to the bridge on which the building stands, repointing the brickwork, rebuilding the frontage, and restoration of the detailing. Thoughtful detailing of replacement doors and windows has re-established the station's attractive appearance towards the street. Internally, the character of the large waiting room has been restored, enhancing it in its new community use as a themed cycling cafe. The former glazed circulation route, the platform stairs via the overbridge, has been upgraded, and a new business cycle workshop is located in the main entrance area. This is a great project. The entrants have worked hard to save a building that might have been lost. They found new uses for it. It helps provide a focal point for the associated cycleway that has been built on the track bed of the former Fallowfield Loop Railway, and it has energised the local community. The third entry in this category was made by Scarborough Studios Community Interest Organisation and covers the creation of the old Parcels Office art space at Scarborough Station. Although the station at Scarborough dates to 1845, the Grade 2 listed structure, which was designed by William Bell for the North Eastern Railway, that forms the entry, dates from 1883, when the facilities offered at Scarborough were extended to cater for its burgeoning market of holidaymakers. By the 1930s, however, declining traffic had seen the building relegated to use as a parcels office. The building eventually fell out of use, and its condition deteriorated to such an extent that it was placed on the local authorities and Historic England's register of listed buildings at risk. Initially, temporary works were carried out to support the failing roof structure, but it has now been taken on by an arts organisation, the fabric restored, and internal alterations undertaken to turn it into a vibrant arts venue. The work to provide the necessary accommodation for the art space has been carried out in an appropriate, minimalist manner. Great care has been taken to respect and retain the many original features, the existing openings and fireplaces, and even the former fish slab has been retained within the lavatory area. Additional elements such as the new staircase and part-height partitions to form the studios are in a contemporary style so that they can readily be distinguished from the original structure. And of particular note is the handling of services and heating patterns. No attempts being made to conceal them, so they're modern features within a historic space. The building is now fully in use, all the studios are occupied, and a number of exhibitions and concerts have been held already. The building demonstrates how, with careful thought and design, an enthusiastic management committee, perseverance, and a great deal of work, a historic building like this can find a new use and have a new lease of life. 3 very impressive entries, I think you'll agree, but which of them impressed our adjudicators most? Well, the winner of the Southeastern Commercial Restoration Award for 2022 is Station South Community Interest Company for that beautiful restoration of the station building at Levenshulme South in Manchester. Unfortunately, no one from the project can be with us today, but I'd like to invite Elaine Rossiter from National Highways, who helped fund the conversion, to receive the plaque on their behalf from Peter Stapleton of Southeastern. And we now come to 2 Chairman's Special Awards. The first of these is made to a project of special significance. No shortlisted, I'm pleased to announce the award goes to Railway Paths Limited for their remarkable work in restoring Bennerley Viaduct in Nottinghamshire. And before I invite the entrance representatives to the stage to receive the award, let's spend a few minutes looking at this remarkable project. The wrought iron viaduct was constructed for the Great Northern Railway for its Derbyshire extension and took the railway over the Erewash Valley. Opened in 1878, the 430-metre-long structure was in use for 90 years until the closure of the route in 1968. Its unusual form of construction was adopted to minimise the effects of mining subsidence, and the result was this visually stunning structure. At one stage, British Rail planned to demolish the viaduct, but it was successfully resisted by local interest groups who managed to get it listed at Grade 2 in 1974. But the viaduct was disused for over 50 years. Transferred to the entrance in 1998, almost a decade ago, volunteers started to undertake limited work to recover its condition, and in 2020, work began on a project costing £1.5 million to restore the viaduct and make it suitable for walkers and cyclists. Following a full structural survey, all wasted and missing pier fittings and bracings were replaced with sympathetic materials. A decision was taken to remove all the remaining ballast and sleepers to provide access to the iron deck, which was then dried and treated with rust inhibitors. Sleeper trough ends have been fitted with zinc folded sleeves, and failed expansion joints have been replaced. Modern composite material deck panels have been installed and the balustrades repaired, and these provide for safe walking and cycling access. Great attention to detail can be seen in the repair of the abutments and the parapets with recovered bricks and masonry. And where replacements were needed, these replicate the originals. And further evidence is provided in the care that was taken in the repair of the pier base brickwork. Visually, the restoration has taken nothing away from the impact and authenticity of this great Victorian viaduct. Benley Viaduct has the potential to provide an anchor for the wider development of the site and the continuing engagement of partner agencies and local community for future generations. So I'd now like to invite Jeff Vinter from Railway Paths Limited and John Scruton from the Friends of Benley Viaduct to come up to the stage to receive their award from Andy Savage, Chairman of the National Railway Heritage Awards. Thank you. The second of these special awards goes to Network Rail on behalf of Scotland's Railway for the transformational work recently undertaken at Glasgow Queen Street Station. Before we invite the winners up to receive their award, let's examine the work undertaken at this important terminus. Glasgow Queen Street originally opened in 1842, but its Grade A listed train shed was only completed in 1878. Due to its confined location, the station, which is the third busiest in Scotland, has always been operationally difficult. And as passenger numbers increased, the need to provide longer platforms became essential. But because there is a tunnel outside it, this could only be achieved by extending the line southwards and utilising the existing concourse area. Following powers obtained to permit purchase and demolition of the existing building in front of the station, work began in October 2017 on a £120 million project. The work was completed in the summer of 2021. The work to the historic platform roof has included exposing and repainting the ornate cast iron columns that support it. These had been boxed in the interest of modernisation, but are now once more a vital feature of the station. The new structure at the front, with its extensive glazed frontage, integrates the station more directly into the city. The building has been thoughtfully designed, balancing operational, security, and architectural requirements. The City Council wanted significant influence on the design of the building, and they wanted one of similar scale to the other buildings in George Square. And it's to the credit of the architects and engineers that they came up with this striking design, and to Transport Scotland that they were willing to fund a project with this level of ambition. This is an outstanding scheme which had at its prime objective the extension of the platforms and the refurbishment of Glasgow Queen Street Station. This has been achieved with the provision of a new concourse within a modern building that complements the great historic roof over the platforms. So would Tom McPake from Network Rail now please join us on the stage to receive the Project Award from Andy Savage. Our final award this morning, ladies and gentlemen, the Greater Anglia Award, is given to what the awards committee judge to be the best entry in any category. The selection of a best entry each year is always difficult, and there is always, we've seen, numerous excellent and varied schemes. But I'm pleased to announce that this year's overall winner goes to Network Rail for the careful work that they have undertaken at Kettering Station as part of the programme for the electrification of the Midland Main Line. Again, before asking the entrants up to receive their award, let's examine this superb project. The Grade 2 listed station at Kettering originally opened in 1857 and was extended in 1879 with the quadrupling of the line. The initial building was designed by Charles Henry Driver, but in the late 1890s, the original station building and canopies on Platform 1 were replaced. The replacements were probably designed by the Midland's then chief architect, Charles Trubshaw. During the last quarter of the 20th century, the station underwent a number of modifications. These included cutting back the canopies on platforms 2 and 4. However, the electrification of the Midland Main Line and the need to ensure the safe integration of the canopies with the new 25,000-volt overhead line equipment required substantial work. The 3-year project began in October 2019 and involved the modification and restoration of the cast iron and glass platform canopies. Where necessary, the replacement of historic fabric of cast iron elements was undertaken and the canopies were reglazed using a modern polycarbonate system. The work on the cast iron detailing is particularly successful. Research from historic drawings established the design of key elements such as the bosses at the end of the canopy gutters and the finials at the apex of each gable. The canopy colour schemes were determined from paint analysis, which established the ivory white and maroon colour scheme used. This is a thoughtful and beautifully undertaken upgrade of an important station, which, with a clear focus on adapting a prominent familiar listed building to the demands of electrification, while retaining its beautiful original canopies. Great care has gone into securing the delicate station canopies and fitting them for a new age and a new technology. So to receive the Greater Anglia Award for the best overall entry in 2022 for Kettering Station, I'd like to invite Farida Morano and Colin Ramshell of Network Rail to receive the plaque from Stuart Freer of Greater Anglia. And that was our final award, ladies and gentlemen. So I'd now like to invite His Royal Highness, the Duke of Gloucester, to say a few words. Thank
you. Good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be invited, no less than the 3rd time, to come and present the prizes for the National Railway Heritage. We are very lucky in this country that we have so much railway heritage. That is mainly because we were the originators in the railway system, which made so much difference to the Industrial Revolution in this country. And I have to remember that as early as 1840, the Great Exhibition in London was attended by no less than 8 million people, half of which had never been to London before. And it is because of our preeminence in that field that other countries copied our systems and our buildings and advanced as we had done before. Of course, the downside in some ways is that old buildings are more expensive to maintain and more expensive to rebuild. And it therefore requires a great deal of thought to apply scarce resources to keep all the bits of the railway system as safe and as beautiful as we would like. So I congratulate all those who make those awkward decisions, who decide that doing it really properly is maybe less expensive than doing it badly. So I congratulate all those who have put their expertise into this process. And I congratulate today's winners, because I understand the standard is going up all the time, and the expectation that things should be properly done is to be maintained. So may I wish you the best of luck in the future, and I hope that your many buildings will benefit from that. I was particularly pleased to see that Wolferton Station got a prize. I do remember as a child going through Wolferton to stay at Sandringham for Christmas, and using that very grand waiting room that had been built in case the Tsar of Russia or somebody similar came to call, which he did. Though I'm not quite sure how impressed he was, because coming from all those huge palaces in St. Petersburg, he was a bit surprised to arrive at Sandringham and find that you went into the front door and there weren't any guards or anything, and you went into the hall, and then you immediately went into the living room. There were no corridors flanked with flunkies and guards. And there he was immediately in the bosom of the family. But I think he quite enjoyed it even so. So congratulations to Wolferton, which is a beautiful place in my opinion. And also to Kettering, which is our local station for BAM. Well, when I say local, we were sort of almost equidistant between Peterborough, Wellingborough, Huntingdon, and Kettering, though possibly Kettering was slightly closer. And I have fond memories of Kettering because that's where I passed my driving test. But it is a pleasure to see so much good work being put into our heritage. And I think you have to remember that when the stations were built, they were the traveller's first impression of a place, and possibly their last impression as well. And it was necessary to make a good impression, perhaps not least to the travellers, but the locals who maybe didn't see the point of travelling in the first place, but knew that the railway was going to make a huge difference to their lives in future. So I hope that you will remember that these buildings were built with pride. They were built to send a message, and that message is still as relevant today as it was then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned had buildings got better, and perhaps you'd like to have this book giving the history of the awards, in which you featured 3 times briefly. we've given awards, 14 awards today, but we've seen many more entries than that. So we'd like to give certificates to those who have not been successful in winning a plaque, because you've all done fantastic work, and His Royal Highness has agreed that he will present the certificates. There's 20 odd to get through, so we'll do this very quickly. Basically, Jerry will announce each winner of a certificate. Please come up, collect it, take the photo, and then go back, because by the time you're going back, the next person will be coming up.
Thanks, Andy. I will be cracking the whip if necessary. I'd like now to invite the shortlisted entrants to come up to the stage to receive their certificates. And first of all, could we start with the team from Loudon Railway Heritage, please, for the restored signal box at Loudon. Next, the representatives from Slice Pizzerias Limited for the work at Manchester Oxford Road, please. I have a feeling there is nobody here from that organisation, so we will move on. Next, Network Rail for the restoration of the War Memorial at Dover, please. And next, Colt Construction Limited for the restoration of the historic box at Garsdale. Now, Transport for London team for the platform indicators at Earl's Court. Next, Network Rail, Wales and Western, and Spence Refit Limited for the work on the Macmillan House facade at Paddington Station. Next, Network Rail and Tasika for the refurbishment of the new Clyde Bridge in Glasgow, please. Network Rail and Colt Construction for the refurbishment of the footbridge at Haltwhistle. Next, the Dean Forest Railway for the completion of the Park End signalling project. Next, the team from Network Rail for Wellingborough. And next, the Wensleydale Railway Association Trust for Leeming Bar Station, please. Next, York Tap Limited and Pivovar Limited for the restored facade at York Tap. Next, the Devon and Cornwall Rail Partnership for the work undertaken on the Beer Alston signal box. I'm now going off script. That's a trip down memory lane for me because I used to work with these guys. Great stuff. Delighted to see it. Next, Thomas and Anne-Marie Pymont for the restoration of the station at Hazeldean. Next, the team from Station South Community Interest Company for Levenshume South. Next, Nairn Men's Shed for the work at Nairn, please. Next, Mark and Carol Benson of the old station at Alliston. Next, Josephine and Gavin Kelly for the restored station at Cashel-Nagar. Next, the Tyne Valley Community Rail Partnership for the waiting rooms at Holtwhistle. And finally, Scarborough Studios CIO for the Old Parcels Office Art Space. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. That completes the event this morning. Please join us outside for... What would you say?
I've got a bit to say yet.
My apologies. Chairman.
You can't get the staff these days. For those of you who've won plaques, Malcolm Wood will be at the back of the room with large envelopes for you to take them back in afterwards. There are a lot of people that make this event happen. The judges, the adjudicators. So my thanks to all of them, to the Merchant Taylors Hall staff, the audiovisual team, to the sponsors, because without their support there would be no competition, and to my colleagues, trustees and the committee who work throughout the year to bring this event to its climax today and make sure that the Swan sails serenely across the water even though we're all paddling like fury. Particular thanks to Mike Stanbury, who for many years was our secretary. He stood down as secretary a couple of years ago, but remained a trustee looking after the archives. And Mike has now retired as a trustee and become a patron of the awards. And it was Mike's hard work 20 years ago that set up the charity that we have been. Sadly, two of our judges have passed away over the last year. Ian Wright, who has retired, but was very much a stalwart until he did, and Derek Young, who is one of our Irish judges. And we appreciate what they have done, along with all our other judges. We have some new names in the team. Tim Headley-Jones has followed me as Executive Director of the Railway Heritage Trust, and after he'd agreed to take the job, I told him that he was also going to be a trustee and look after the sponsorship here. Lisanne MacLeod has joined us to help with finance, and Vicky Stretch, Network Rail Archivist, volunteered when I asked her where I could find help to look after our archives. She volunteered to do it ourselves. Thank you and welcome to all of you. There will be one major change within the next year with the awards. We've been a charity for 20 years and the law has moved on, and the Charity Commission has agreed that we can reconstruct as a charitable incorporated organisation. So the actual organisation that runs the awards will change on April the 1st, and there will be changes in the trustee cohort at that time. Some of our trustees have worked long and hard and really do deserve time to put their feet up after 20-odd years in the job. So we'll be announcing that during the year, and when we gather again on December the 6th again next year, because we had to move forward a day this year because of double booking, so we'll be back on the Wednesday next year. It will be as a CIO. Finally, Your Royal Highness, can I thank you again for your support repeatedly over the years. As you say, 3 times now. We really do appreciate you coming and joining us. I hope you enjoy the architecture here, knowing your professional interest in architecture. And can I wish everybody a very happy Christmas and invite you to adjourn outside to have lunch. Thank you.